Hi, everyone. Good afternoon to you in Nigeria. Good morning to you from Canada and all over the world. Happy to welcome you to this very first episode of the webinar, Understanding Climate Income. My name is David Michael. Many of you know me. I work with GSEP as a founder of GSEP, but now I've added another cap to my head. I also work with Citizens Climate International as Africa Regional Coordinator. So I got to know about Citizens Climate International since 2015. And in 2016, I had the opportunity to attend the international conference in Washington, DC. And it's an experience that introduced me to the climate income. So at that conference, we went to the Capitol Hill to lobby the parliament to pass a climate finance policy called carbon fee and dividend, otherwise known as climate income. And since then, I've not looked back. I see this policy as an opportunity for Africa and other parts of the world to eradicate poverty completely. It is an opportunity for basic income for all citizens of the planet while taking care of the climate crisis. And so many of you have noticed that I've written a few articles about this, trying to get our government across Nigeria and other parts of Africa to adopt this policy as a way to build back better from COVID-19. So here we are. We're close to 100 persons registered for this webinar. At the moment, we are 18, 17 persons. But like Cathy will say, it is not about the numbers. It is about the quality. So I believe that those of you here have interest to understand what climate income is. And today you will. Our objectives are quite simple here today. We just want to know about carbon pricing around the world. We are going to answer all your questions. And then the last but not the least, the icing on the cake, we'll have a special guest whom I'll be introducing to you much later.
Hello, sir.
Yes, hold on. So we have this poll is out now. You can, how much do you know about climate income? You can just click on the one that you feel you know. We have a lot, we have some, we have very little. Can you see the poll on your screen? You can just vote, I just did. We'll take 30 seconds to do this.
So it appears only David Michael knows a lot about climate income, because I think he's the one who answered that. Excellent. A lot of people, the majority of people, 55% of people know pricing carbon pollution is the policy that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions the most. You should know that 46 countries have legislated carbon pricing policies. And we will be going through this again. And 97 countries have carbon pricing in their NDCs, or their nationally determined contributions and commitments to the United Nations. So I think you've done very well. Can you see those results, David Michael?
Yes, Cathy, I can. I'm quite happy. I know my colleagues in Nigeria know quite a lot about some of these issues. So, guys, already you've heard the statistics. About 97 countries have carbon pricing in their NDCs. At the moment, 61 jurisdictions around the world are pricing carbon. 46 of these are national initiatives, while 32 are subnational, like in our case, we say states. So nothing stops any states in Nigeria from pricing carbon. Now, what are the different mechanisms for pricing carbon that you know? The first one, I would say, is the status quo. Let's leave it the way it is. Let's do nothing. The second one is regulations. You know that Nigeria remains the only country in the world that still flares gas. There has been regulations for years. There have been penalties for years, but this has continued without, any hindrance. The companies are taking advantage of our weak laws, weak enforcement to continually flare gas. The gas our people are looking for cooking and all of that. The next is carbon and trade, cap and trade. So many of you, like Dr. Eugene here, will know much about cap and trade. This includes the ETS, emission trading systems, which many countries have adopted, like Mexico, like Colombia, and other countries. Now, the cap and trade is quite simple. It's just to cap emissions, and this is politically determined at that level. For us, we think that yes, cap and trade increases the prices of energy, but it does not reduce emissions in some way, and it harms the poor, because when the prices of energy go very high, the poor cannot afford. And that is why I'm introducing you guys to the climate income policy. And to do this with me is a beneficiary of this policy. At the moment, Canada is one of the very first countries in the world that introduced the climate income policy. Cathy Orlando, speaking to you here today, is a beneficiary. Just yesterday, she informed me that she has received several checks of her rebates of climate income. And so I made no mistake in inviting her to be with us today to tell us a little bit more about carbon climate income, the carbon fee and dividend policy. Cathy is the programs director at Citizens Climate International. Cathy, over to you.
Thank you, David Michael. That was a wonderful introduction. So the presentation I'm going to be giving you is something I gave to members of the European Parliament 2 weeks ago. But before I start that, I would like to share this video. I hope you can hear it. I was invited by our colleagues in Citizens Climate Europe to present about carbon fee and dividend, and they've been cheering for it for 5 years now. and they made this video. So I'm going to share it, and please stop me if you can't hear the sound. So here we go. So this is carbon fee and dividend as explained by our European colleagues. '21 is a pivotal year, and hopefully we will begin the COVID recovery. Don't want to jinx it. This year, the G7 is going to be hosted by the United Kingdom, and the G20 will be hosted by Italy, and the Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change will also be hosted by the UK, and hopefully they will be finalizing the Paris Agreement, of which carbon pricing is a component. You should know that Citizens Climate Lobby works in the civil society groups behind the scenes at the G7, the G20, as well as at the COPs. And I've noticed that Korea, India, and Australia are invited guests of the G7, and there's no African country there that I can see. And I feel that perhaps there should be an African country at the table. I'm being Canadian and very polite. And then when I look over at the G20, they have invited the Algerian Democratic Republic and Rwanda to be part of the G20. But I also know that your country, Nigeria, a country of 200 million people, an oil producing country just like Canada, and an economy almost as large as Russia, does not have a seat at the table. And I wish you were there. So, at these discussions, the major thrust is to build back better, which is a global slogan for creating a socially just society. And it is really something that is being pushed behind the scenes. So we're working really hard alongside many to help build a better world. So this is the information I shared with members of the European Parliament 2 weeks ago today. I want you to know I'm not an expert, but I've spent the past decade empowering Canadians to lobby parliamentarians for an ambitious price on carbon pollution that returns the money collected back to the people and includes border carbon adjustment mechanisms. It is actually the centerpiece of my government's Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And as you can see, between 2018 and 2022, it will reduce emissions in my country by 80 to 90 megatons. And without it, our carbon emissions would go up. You're very busy. And in the next 10 minutes, I hope you have a better understanding of Canada's ambitious carbon pricing policy and how Canada's policy can support an ambitious international carbon price that will transition industry, and most importantly for politicians, survive elections. This policy is called climate income in Europe, and that's the term that seems to be taking hold in much of the world. But on my side of the Atlantic, we call it carbon fee and dividend. So in October of 2018, the Canadian government announced the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. As David Michael says, I've already started receiving money. Starting on April 2019, it began to be no longer free to pollute. The government put a price on carbon pollution starting at $20 per ton Canadian in 2019, going up to $50 a ton by 2022. In the provinces and territories that opted in or did not meet the benchmark, they are put under what we call the backstop policy, which is climate income for most of us. And for the heavy emitters in Canada, they are currently under what's called an output-based carbon pricing system, which is kind of like cap and trade, but without cap. But most of the economy is under a carbon fee and dividend system. So this policy survived the 2019 election, and this is why. Okay, so this data is from our Parliamentary Budget Office, and that's like the official accountant for the Government of Canada. And as you can see in the provinces of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the bottom 80% of earners actually come out ahead and receive more money back from the government than what they pay. Same with Manitoba. And even in Ontario and New Brunswick, it's the bottom 2/3 of Canadians come out ahead. And even in 2022, when the price on carbon pollution will be at $50 a ton, in Ontario, it will be even the top income quintiles will only be paying about $200 a year, which is the equivalent of one fancy cup of coffee per week, and I think they can afford that. So this is how this is distributed back to the people. And so why do people come out ahead? This is data for the G20, and all across the world, it appears that the top 10% of countries, the top 10% or the top 20% earners in countries have a much larger carbon footprint, so that's a green bar, than average, which is the purple bar. And the bottom 50% and bottom 40% earners have an even lower carbon footprint, and that's why they get more money back than what they receive, than what they paid. So very excitingly, in December of 2020, my government announced almost everything that we've been lobbying for the past 10 years would be announced in our would be enacted in Canada. The government will now be incrementally rising the carbon pricing policy past 2022 so that it reaches $170 a ton by 2030. And they also indicated that they're exploring border carbon adjustments. And on March 4th, 2021, the permanent mission of Canada at the World Trade Organization had a 1.5-hour seminar on border carbon adjustments where over 750 people attended. And on the next day, Canada co-chaired the first meeting of the Trade and Environmental Sustainability structured discussions at the World Trade Organization. And you're probably wondering, why would Canada be exploring border carbon adjustments? And I think this last slide tells the story. And if somebody could let the people in the waiting room in, that'd be great. Thanks. All right. Okay, so this is Canadians for Clean Prosperity data. It is very similar to what our Parliamentary Budget Office says. I know it's a very complex chart, but I want you to focus in on 2030, right here. And under the scenario where Canada's carbon pricing policy would not have border carbon adjustments, but still rise past 2022 at a rate of $10 per ton, we get 92% of the way to our Paris agreements. If the carbon pricing policy includes border carbon adjustments, we blow past our Paris Agreement targets and get 148% of the way past it. And if we have our current carbon pricing policy in Canada and include border carbon adjustments, we get 206% of the way past our Paris Agreement targets. The power of carbon pricing cannot be denied. So I gave that presentation to the members of the European Parliament. There was about 15 to 20 in the room, and something happened just under a week later. The lawmakers at the European Union voted by a wide margin, 444 to 70, with 181 abstentions, to support the development of what they call in Europe carbon border adjustment mechanisms. So border carbon adjustments are coming. And yeah, so David Michael, back over to you. That's okay, for questions and answers.
Yes, thank you, Cathy. Thank you for the presentation. Let me quickly just summarize here by saying that the policy is this simple: put a price on carbon. When you do that, the prices of energy goes high, and the common man, the vulnerable people, will be affected. So why is it called climate income? That fee, that tax, is given back to every household in Nigeria, for example, so that it reduces the stress, the high cost of energy. Someone else will ask, how does this now reduce greenhouse gas emissions? You know that anything that is taxed, people avoid it. As the prices go high, the companies and individuals begin to look for other alternatives, very simple ways. Clean tech instead of the regular. And that is why it is called climate income, because you tax the big industries, you give the money back to the people. So imagine every household in Nigeria getting a per check at the end of the month, or say in 3-4 months' time. It's going to be huge in reducing poverty. But I know someone else will be asking, we don't even have data in Nigeria. How do we start from? Where do we start? There's always a starting point. I imagine a state like Bayelsa, with all the derivations and all of that goes in, and begins something like that. You can imagine the impact. This is simply why it is called climate income. So I welcome any question, comments, discussions. We have about 20 minutes to go. So you can just put up your hand and then I will invite you.
Sorry, sir, I'd like to say something, sir. Mr. Success.
Yes. Your name again?
Okay, thank you, sir. I am a little bit confused because from the presentation and your own explanation, to wrap it up, you said you should tax the carbon, then you make more money for the states, and then it's directly or indirectly distributed across homes in the country, as in for the common man on the street. So if you tax the carbon, are you encouraging?
Okay, it might not be available. To get
Please, sorry. Sophia, can you help us? Thank you. I got that question. Cathy, do you want to respond to that now?
Yeah, it got a little garbled. Can you repeat it back to me? So the question was, yes, you give them, the government taxes the people, and then collects it and then gives it back to the people. And then what was the question? I apologize. I was actually trying to monitor the room.
What I'm trying to say is that how do you tax the carbon and then the emission? Then what are we discouraging the use of this carbon to go into a clean energy? Now, secondly, it's how would it translate into helping the common man on the street? Because virtually the services we increased and the citizen may not be able to purchase those services.
Okay, those are excellent questions. So how do you tax the carbon? The carbon content of all fuels is known. So the government puts a fee on that carbon content of the fuels, and they collect that money. And then when that fuel is sold directly to people or to business, it's already embedded in the cost, and the government has taken that money. So, and how it works, it actually encourages clean energy production, because if you want to stop something from being consumed, you put a price on it. If you want to stop investments over time, which takes time over a 10-15 year period, you put a price on it so investors know on a timeline when clean energy will be more affordable than carbon-based fuels. It basically sends a market signal both to investors and to the people, so we can transition. So I'm gonna flip this on its head. So imagine the government just subsidized clean energy. There's no incentive for people to stop using dirty energy. So you actually don't see a decrease in fossil fuel use when you just subsidize clean energy. You have to price what is hurting the economy. And climate change is really hurting our economies. And so is the air quality results of carbon pollution. So
sorry, let me quickly chip in something. I think you also made an analogy that when you cost the carbon, it will force the people to think another opportunity in clean energy, right? So if you cost the carbon, it will discourage investors into going there. So how will government make more money from there to service the people?
oh, well, it shifts the economy. In the United States, a lot of detailed studies have been done by what's called REMI, which is a Regional Economic Modeling Incorporated. And they have found that when a price, through their studies on what would happen if climate income was enacted like Canada's policy in the USA, and if they go into those rural communities and other, they find that, or most communities, they find that the price on carbon pollution and giving the money back to the people actually stimulates the local economy. It gets money circulating. You're giving money directly back to households, which in most cases is women, and they will do things like put more money into their children's education and put more money into health. So, and if you step back a little bit and consider what is economy is money circulating. So giving money directly back to the people gets money circulating within the community. So when the studies are done, when you compare an economy that does not have a price on carbon pollution and it just lets it run amok versus actually pricing carbon pollution, it is far more damaging not to price carbon, not to do anything about climate change. Whereas in an economy under a carbon pollution pricing policy, like in Canada, we're probably going to see about a 0.4% contraction of our GDP but that is much smaller than like if we don't actually do something about climate change, which will be like 3 to 6% over the, so yeah, so it stimulates the economy and it protects the people, gives money directly back to the people.
Well,
Thank you, Cathy. Hold on, success, so that we give other people the opportunity. But I just want to say to you that for the 2 times Nigeria economy went into a recession, you know that the price of crude oil went down. And as other countries, the major consumers of this product, gradually proceeds to other renewable sources, our market will go down. So definitely the country begins at this time to look for alternatives. We cannot just continually depend on our fossil fuels. Yeah, thank you. So Adeswa, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mike. Thank you very much to you, Cathy, for that lovely presentation earlier, and congratulations to you for being able to make that much impact in Canada. I mean, that's what a whole lot of us also want to do in our various countries. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then the next questions will be directed to Mr. Mike. So to you, Cathy, so recently a UN report showed that the NDC commitments, current NDC commitments, when stacked up, will not be enough to cover what is needed to, actually reverse climate change and its devastating impact. I mean, they said that current NDC emissions will cut emissions by, current NDC commitments will cut emissions by around 2.5%, if I'm right, while we need around 55% cut to actually make a meaningful impact, to bring down temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So can you say, with all boldness, that this carbon income, climate income is what we need to make radical change globally? That's your question. And then to Mr. David, I'm going to also echo what I think it was Success that spoke just now, the kind of questions that he was asking. So this is Nigeria, and our clean technology sector is not, so that was why I was very interested in this conversation as well. Our clean tech sector is underdeveloped. We have a lot of other issues, with deforestation and so on and so forth. And when we start talking about, so we're a fossil fuel economy, although I also acknowledge that we need to be moving, towards the light, but that has not yet happened. So my point is, will this, putting a tax on carbon, will it not further take up the prices of goods and drive away investors, and cause more pain to the average man? Because if we tax these fossil fuel companies, then the average goods that we get from fossil fuels or even transportation goes up, and the people that feel that pain is the average man. And although I acknowledge that you also said that money will be distributed to this household, but how would that happen? Because even the COVID-19 palliatives, we all saw how that went. So what is this? I don't think that Nigeria even has any, although I also admit we have to start from somewhere, but we don't currently have the right things, the right system in place to ensure that every man, like my mother or my neighbor's mother in the village, actually gets to benefit from this money. And then has it been tested in any African country? Can you give any example of an African country where this is working, or where this has already worked, that we can also make reference to, particularly in our arguments? Because this is something I also like and would like to commit to. And how do we get our own government here in Nigeria, this is to you, Mr. Mike, to embrace it? So that's the final question. Those are my reactions to the presentation. Thank you very much for this interesting session. Over.
Those are very good questions and very thoughtful. I would like to just go back to this slide over here. Like I said, Canada, if we enact the carbon pricing policy with border carbon adjustments, we will get 206% of the way past our Paris Agreement our targets are actually shameful. They're only 30% below our 2005 levels, but we will be able to shoot way past that and get much closer to that 50 to 60% below our 2005 levels by 2030, just with this carbon pricing policy enacted fully with border carbon adjustments. I did not want to info bomb you. I'm a teacher by training, and there is so much data out there. If you dig deeply into the IPCC data and a full carbon pricing policy like the way Canada has designed it, where much of the world's economy is under a carbon price, we will get pretty darn close to at least the 2C limit of global warming. So we will need other policies. And if you even do more research, so go on the On-Roads climate policy simulator, again, you see that carbon pricing done the way Canada has done it, but enacted across most of the globe, gets us pretty darn close to at least the 2C limit. Yes, we need other policies. There's no other policy that gets us as close. You could plant as many trees as you wish. You could simulate, I mean, if you just stimulate clean energy production by incentivizing it, you actually don't even remotely come close. If you remove fossil fuel subsidies, you don't remotely come close to doing this. There is no other policy on the planet that can reduce greenhouse gas emissions like carbon pricing. That's why over a decade ago, I decided this was going to be the policy I would champion. And it gives the money back to the people. So it does not burden the everyday person. So there's plenty of economic studies that show this. And yeah, I'm going to hand it over to David Michael because we still need to give Sophia time to speak. And we also need to maybe have a few more questions answered. So excellent question. I hope I answered it.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Adeswa, for the question. Yes, as a Nigerian, I share a lot of those concerns as well. When usually at our meetings, always we talk about the absence of data and all of that we do not have. But just like Nelson Mandela said, it looks impossible until it is done. But whether we do it or not, we will be forced to if the G7 adopts the border carbon adjustments and all the other countries do. Then for every export to those countries, we will be paying a carbon fee because those countries have it. And that will even make our stuff more expensive. But this provides the opportunity. Moving around Abuja, for example, if you look at the number of solar panels that have increased, you look at the number of solar street lights that have increased. I wish all these were produced here in Nigeria, but yeah, we are not there yet, but we have to, we have to start from somewhere. And why I'm saying this is, as the price of crude oil, as the price of fuel goes higher, people generally are looking at other options. And what are the options? Renewables. We look at them as very expensive for now, but sure, to be adopted. Yes, we do not have that data at the moment to say we're going to share or distribute resources to vulnerable households so that the impact of the fee, the impact of removal of subsidies is not felt so much by them. And how are we going to get our government to adopt this policy? A big tax, it will be. It's for all of us. If we care about reducing poverty, in the country. Yes, we have started a conversation, and it's slowly. Canada did it for 10 years, and they got through. We don't know how long we're going to go, but we keep pushing. But I know that as soon as the other countries of the world, most especially those who are pushing for world basic income, this same bill is at the US Parliament at the moment. The EU is considering it. And when most of those other countries do, you know how it is for us in Africa, we will be forced to somehow adopt. So it's better we start the conversation now and begin to understand that this is an opportunity to empower our people so that the level of poverty reduces. And that's why I like to call this policy climate income. The World Bank started the World Bank pricing, the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. At the moment, one African country, that is Ivory Coast, is the one that is considering, is very close, considering this policy that much. Fortunately, the leader of the World Bank Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition is from Ivory Coast, a woman as well. Other African countries have the other form of taxing regulations like South Africa do, and all, but it's not the carbon fee and dividend as we know it. So yeah, we'll keep pushing, and we are inviting everyone on board as you read to understand a little bit more about this.
How much more time, David Michael, just to be fair to the
Thank you.
audience?
Maybe we can. So we can take maybe just 2 more questions and then we'll round up. So please be very brief. Osato, your hand is up, and Bolahan Bello. So Osato, go first, and then Bolahan. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Good day.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I feel this is a great idea. It's a great initiative, but we have to be very practical when we are localizing these ideas in Nigeria. So it could work, but if we do it the wrong way, it's going to end up in the wrong hands. So for instance, a project is coming to Nigeria, or let's say a company is already existing and they are using carbon fault. How do we intend to do it without taking the income that you are getting from these companies to the government? Because when it gets to the government, just maybe a few people will just share that money, and it doesn't even get to those people that are in the communities around the project area. So is there a way we can maybe have an independent company, an independent authority, just like companies that do resettlement action plans, all this ESMP and the rest, like they actually go to field and actually find out, just like, let's say my company too, it does that, go to the field, find out, oh, who are the people around these areas? Let's say a big company, XYZ company has come on board. Okay, these maybe noise, carbon footprints, the emissions and everything, then go and do a survey around that place. So the excuse of data shouldn't really be an issue. Those people can actually like take care of the cost of all those things, and with that, I feel it's going to be channeled to the right sources, get the data of those that are around that place, and be able to give them that income from the pollution that they are going to be experiencing, instead of just taking the money and put it in the system, and then those people won't be like compensated somewhat. So I think that's my own suggestion on this part.
Thank you so much, Osato. You asked the question and you already answered it yourself perfectly. There is that system. An independent body is the one that collects the tax. All right, it's not like going directly to the government. Okay. Yes. One last one. I think Bello, Bolahan, your hand was up first before Sammy. Sorry, Sammy. You can put your question in the chat Yes, baby.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you, Cathy, for the presentation. My name is Bolan. I am an investment banker. So I will be looking at this from that perspective.
Yes, go
Nigeria.
ahead.
The companies in Nigeria needs to be organized within this structure of carbon taxing and credits and whatever. You know, and the way I look at it is if we can involve the financial markets, you know, because the power, look, this financial sector powers the economy in Nigeria actually. You know, if you look at it from the angle of who is actually emitting these greenhouse gases, and then trying to approach them to trying to tax them to get results, it might almost be a tough one. So if we key into the policies of, for example, the capital market, like the stock exchange, they have some policies in place with respect to sustainability. So if they begin to push all of these carbon policies within the structure of the organizations that are listed and the organization that low listed companies relate with, it might possibly have this desired impact that we want. I'm talking about the Nigerian Stock Exchange and the other financial market infrastructure in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bolahan. That's another approach, and it's been very well noted. I'm sorry, guys, we are already behind schedule, and we just have one last speaker who is going to speak for less than 5 minutes. So I want to introduce my friend, Sophia Mathur. She's, again, she's from Canada. Sophia started lobbying politicians at the age of 7. Met with Sophia twice at the US Capitol Hill, where she went to lobby for this same bill at the US Parliament. She has just done so much. The time would not even permit me to read all about Sophia, but I just wanted to know that she is one of the 11 Canadian environmentalists whose story was told by James Bestow in their 2020 book. She's still very, very young, and she is an advocate and a beneficiary of this policy, and so she feels it should go all over the world. Here, Sophia, over to you.
So thank you for that kind introduction. So today is March 19th, and around the world, youth are again rising the alarm bells about the climate emergency. It has been exactly 124 weeks since I joined Fridays for Future in my city of Sudbury, Ontario, in Canada. I see no end in sight, but this is not right. We are in a climate emergency, and we all must listen to the experts and work together. This includes listening to the 28 Nobel Prize economists and the thousands of economists worldwide who support a gradually increasing fee on carbon pollution, with the money collected and returned back to the people, which is Canada's carbon pricing policy. It is one of the most important things you can do to protect our future. We honor our parents and our grandparents by carefully listening to them and doing what needs to be done. My dadu, which is the East Indian term for paternal grandfather, was an IPCC scientist for the first report in 1990. My Italian grandfather instilled in my mother, ignorance is evil. Not listening to the experts is periling my future. Ignoring the climate crisis is evil. People are suffering needlessly, and the suffering from the climate crisis will become horrendous in my lifetime. So I have decided to act. I have been lobbying politicians since I was 7 years old. Although I am Canadian, I have lobbied every year on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. since I was 9 years old until the pandemic hit. I am very worried about my future and the future of my friend, David Michael Terungwa, and his children. I am very worried about the future of all children, especially those who live in equatorial countries and the Arctic, who are feeling the impacts of the climate crisis right now. I am not old enough to vote. All I can do is strike every Friday to demand that adults protect our future. I should be looking forward to a future and not having to fight for one. The solution is so simple. It appears to be so simple that most adults can't see it. But do you see it? Do you see it? I see it. It is listen to the experts and work together. If carbon pricing is done the Canadian way, it will cut a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. Please make it happen. Nigeria and Canada are in this together. We are both Commonwealth nations and oil-producing nations. The whole world is in this together. If Nigeria makes climate income its carbon pricing policy, this will show great leadership and the world will be ready to start to shift. And perhaps I can finally retire from Fridays for Future once and for all. You can do this. You can make this happen. We can all change the world when we listen to the experts and when we work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia. What a great way to end this call. I was patiently waiting for my one of our mentors in this field, Dr. Eugene, to say something. If Doctor, you are still here, I will gladly give you a minute to say something before we call it a day. And this will be the beginning of the conversation around carbon pricing, around this topic. Thank you, everyone. Is Doctor still here?
Hello, are you talking to me?
Yes, Dr. Eugene Itwa, you.
Thank you very much. I think it's been so brilliant. I didn't really want to speak. The only question I had asked, I put it on the chat box. And I think that is where we can readily attract some of the conversations or crystallize what we're talking about here readily. Or just to say that it's been a beautiful program, and do hope that we're able to carry this conversation further with some level of action to them. And to congratulate you for this beautiful arrangement. Let's create a community amongst us here. Perhaps we start with a WhatsApp platform or whatever, and then where we have information, we pass to ourselves and build more capacity, create more awareness, encourage one another to carry this further. Thank you very much. I must say it was and indeed a beautiful session. Well done.
There is no better way to end a meeting with these very beautiful words, Doctor. Thank you so much. Let me not forget to say thank you to Cathy Orlando. Thank you so much, Sophia. And thank you to Wendy Adeswa. I know many of you don't know Wendy. Adeswa, vice friend at the British High Commission. She actually started this conversation when she saw a post I made about this and requested that we hold this meeting. So the British High Commissioner is indirectly involved, the High Commission, sorry, is indirectly involved in this. And the action points are very well noted, Doctor. Thank you, everyone. Do have a great weekend. And let's have a group photo. If you would not mind, just put on your cameras. And Cathy, you help us. Put on your cameras, everyone. Or if you have a very good profile photo, just leave it there.
Sorry, Mr. Mike, I just want to quickly say I'm here in my personal capacity.
Okay, I understand that. That's why I say indirectly. Thank you.
Are we ready? This was beautiful. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much, David Michael. Thank you, everybody, for taking time on your Friday. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and one more. Bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
Cathy.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.